to bring John Heilemann up on stage, and he's going to bring his panelists up and have a discussion about the web and politics. John? Welcome back.
Thank you. So I'm supposed to introduce my panelists, and I'm going to do that really briefly so we can actually get to the conversation. The first of our panelists is, I'm going to go in alphabetical order, is Arianna Huffington, who is the ubiquitous and charismatic and charming and world-changing founder of the Huffington Post. There she is. We have the also ubiquitous, charming, and oh so handsome mayor of the city of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom. There he is. It's like, let's make a deal out here. And the third panelist, not quite so charming, not quite so handsome, but awfully influential, the greatest political consultant of our time, Joe Trippi.
That's right.
So I wanted to start this panel with an observation and ask you all just simply to comment on it. And you can tell me I'm right or tell me I'm wrong, and certainly tell me the ways in which I'm right or wrong. It's my contention that the 2008 presidential election is an election like 1960 in the sense that a new medium that had been nascent and happening in politics for some number of elections beforehand became not just an important medium, but the dominant medium of political engagement, political discourse, and that medium, of course, is the web. So let me start at your end, Joe. Do you think that's true or false? And offer a bit of commentary about why it's true or false.
Well, first of all, one, it's absolutely true, and the second, and the why is, you started to see it rise in power in 2003, 2004 with Wes Clark, Howard Dean, a lot of the presidential campaigns that ran that year. But the tools, there was no such thing as YouTube. I mean, Facebook was something that was happening on a few campuses around college campuses, but it hadn't moved on yet. So you had all these new tools that came on that really created a big difference. I mean, a big sea change between sort of the Wright brother days, I call them, of 2004, turning to suddenly the whole thing comes together and Apollo 11's happening, and you're seeing you know, the Obama campaign launch a guy and land him safely in the White House because of just the tool set that changed, and the number of people in the network as well. I mean, more people on broadband. We just did a look at the fact that the Obama campaign, the official stuff that they created for YouTube, was watched 14.5 million hours by people. To buy 14.5 million hours on broadcast television is $47 million. So the speeches, the videos that they put up that were watched for 14.5 million hours by American citizens was the equivalent of half the money John McCain received from the federal government for his general election campaign. And at the same time, people, to buy that time, you're interrupting somebody in the middle of a football game or the soap opera. These were people who went there because a friend said, I mean, they wanted to see, they were pulling this stuff and wanted to view it. So things totally sea changed from just 2004 to 2008 that made this, I think, really the breakthrough year. And I think you're going to see a totally complete, just like Kennedy brought in the television presidency, I think we're about to see the first wired or connected or internet, I don't know what we're going to call it, but it'll be the first network presidency, I think.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, I think that's the exciting part. Now what does it mean in terms of governance? It's one thing in an election, but from my perspective, I'm much more interested in what this means in terms of changing people's lives as opposed to changing the person in the White House who's occupying. If my text messages are any indication, then absolutely everything Joe said is right with a bunch of exclamation points. If the sensibilities of people feeling a real connection to this cause, not just to this candidate, is indicative of this change of medium and the remarkable social networking, myobama.com, the Twitter, the Facebooks, the MySpaces, et cetera, the blogging, the empowerment aspects of this, right? It is analogous to what you have stated in the context of your question, and it's extraordinary. But again, now what does it mean in terms of the manifestation of it in the context of an ongoing dialogue that's unfiltered in terms of shaping public policy, in terms of fundamentally shifting the construct of what we believe is possible in this country on so many issues that defined this presidential campaign.
I want you to hold that thought because I want to come back and actually drill down on that in the second half of our conversation when we move into, we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to try to divide this thing slightly into talking about campaigning and governing and the web in both of those contexts, but I want to get Arianna on 2008 is to the web what 1960 was to TV.
I completely agree with that and with what Joe and Gavin said. Let's put it very bluntly. Were it not for the internet, Barack Obama would not be president. Were it not for the internet, Barack Obama would not have been the Democratic nominee. He only managed to defeat Hillary Clinton because of the forces that he galvanized, both to fundraise and to organize, and the incredibly sophisticated way in which he did it. And by contrast, the McCain campaign really didn't have a clue. It was really fascinating to see how the problem with the McCain campaign was not the age of the candidate, it was the age of the ideas dominating the campaign. And if you take, for example, Karl Rove politics, the internet has killed Karl Rove politics. Let me explain what I mean. No, thank you.
That was an easy one. You can get a talk about an easy line.
But it happens to be, it's great when a line can be easy and true, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So remember, in 2004, the only reason George Bush got reelected was because of the constant fear-mongering, because of the swift voting of John Kerry, because they succeeded in having 47% of swing voters actually believe that John Kerry had inflicted his own wounds in order to get the Bronze Star. Now, this was not possible, and it did not happen in 2008, because while the mainstream media have a tendency of correcting something and then moving on to the next shiny object, as Jon Stewart calls it, those of us in the blogosphere, those of us online, suffer from obsessive-compulsive disorder. So we stay on something and stay on something. So remember, after the Republican convention, we had Sarah Palin. Remember Sarah Palin?
My memory's foggy on that. Would you like to explain that phenomenon to us, Arianna?
I call it the Trojan moose of the Republican Party. So Sarah Palin told us how she had been opposed to the bridge to nowhere from the beginning, right? Then John McCain started repeating that. Online, there was an absolutely obsessive campaign to prove that wrong. The McCain campaign ignored that for a few days, and they kept repeating the line. Do you remember? And then they dropped it, because simply they could not continue repeating it. Now, in 2004, trust me, they would have gone on repeating it, because the echo chamber would not have been as powerful. And the same thing happened with all the fear-mongering around Bill Ayers, around Obama being a strange socialist terrorist. Somehow it was not believable because the truth kept actually intruding into people's rooms in such a way that it was not possible for that completely delusional fear-mongering to prevail. So that, for me, is the greatest success of the 2008 race.
Do you mean that Barack Obama was not a socialist terrorist? I'm going to have to go back and change my vote now. Arianna, actually, let me stay with you on that because I think it's really important. I mean, one of the things that's happened, to kind of think maybe this is sort of as an extension of your point, but you can speak to it in a little more detail. You know, one of the things that's happened that happened between 2004 and 2008 is obviously the media environment changed because of the rise of the left blogosphere, of which you are a leading captain. And it seems to me that part of the thing that happened there is that a counter narrative got established. That previously we had Drudge, which was kind of a submerged narrative, but it was clearly a right-wing narrative. And then there was no counterweight to that. And then the left blogosphere arose, and there was balance. So first of all, do you think that's, I mean, just balance in the sense that there's a counterweight. I mean, Do you think that's true? And do you think that Drudge is just history now?
Actually, I don't think that's true, and let me explain why. Because I think there is something called truth, and I believe that it's not about right versus left. I think this is a very obsolete way of looking at American politics. It is about where does the truth lie, and the truth does not always lie in the middle. Sometimes it's on one side or the other, and I think while we had, for example, Drudge with a huge headline one day, 3 weeks before the end of the campaign, talking about the McCain volunteer who had been attacked and had a bee. Do you remember that? It was a huge headline on Drudge. They had a bee kind of scratched into her face. You know, this was like this huge issue. And that's happened to be untrue. It wasn't right. It wasn't left. So I think the key thing right now is to just stop looking at politics in that way. Partly because many issues that were considered left-wing, you know, giving people some form of health care, bringing the troops home, corporate responsibility, doing something about global warming, are now solidly mainstream. So what we mean when we talk about the left-wing blogosphere or left-wing positions, this is not really where the country is at the moment. In a sense, Barack Obama embodies the new center. He has to define it. And what certainly is my vision for the Huffington Post is to embody the kind of new journalism, which is not about right versus left, but what is the truth, and being transparent and clear about it. And you're having more and more mainstream journalists do that. You had Campbell Brown take on McCain operatives and challenge them when they were simply not telling the truth, instead of sitting there like supposedly an objective journalist, allowing them to say things that were simply lies.
Joe, do you care to comment on that? Joe, do you still believe in right and left, or do you think that's an outmoded notion and that the web has not only changed our politics, but in fact eliminated all ideological distinctions in our discourse?
No.
Not to caricature Arianna's position, but.
No, but I mean, I think Arianna is making a good, important point, that what's happened is the mainstream media does he said, she said, and doesn't say. I mean, in other words, they literally sit there and let the Republicans say the glass is empty, and the Democrat says the glass is full, and they never say, look at the glass, make a decision here. They just report that he said and she said, and that's the way it is. And I think the blogosphere says, no, look at the damn glass. You know, and you can look at the glass yourself and make your own decision. And the thing about you know, numbers do matter in this stuff. And what you look at is, you know, Rush Limbaugh tore into me for half an hour on a show yesterday because I said that it's going to be fairly easy for them to start immediately mywhitehouse.gov. They've started change.gov now, but my idea a couple days ago was mywhitehouse.gov, basically give people the tool set to help you pass your healthcare agenda, your first 100-day agenda. And, you know, Limbaugh immediately goes into, oh, that's great, 3.2 crazy people standing up with their president, banging on members of Congress, intimidating them to pass stuff. And it's like, no, you idiot. It's about the president and the people actually connecting in a way that's never happened before, just like John F. Kennedy did with television, but this guy connecting to people and them able to connect with their president and actually pass an agenda through on health care, on energy, on global warming, on whatever the main issues are. And it won't be an appeal to partisanship. He's going to be the president of the United States saying, go to mywhitehouse.gov because it is your White House, and let's go get this thing done. And you know, God help the 15 members of Congress who are taking money from the healthcare industry that happen to be standing in front of his bill on healthcare reform, because and it's not 3.2 million, it's going to be 10, 20 million Americans who are going to work with him to help get it through. Those 15 members of Congress are going to have, the money's not going to have the same effect. That taking the healthcare industry's money isn't going to be worth it. So, I mean, I think this is going to change a lot more than just our politics, just the way the presidential campaign happened. I think it's going to change government. I think in a strange way, all of us have complained, a lot of people on the left complain about how during the Bush administration, the presidency had too much power. I think we're about to see a presidency with even more power and a Congress with less, even though it is a Democratic majority, because it's the president with the power, with people, millions of them. Right. Congress is going to get caught between a rock and a hard place when it doesn't want it, when it refuses to go with his agenda. It's not just the president; it's going to be this connected network. You know, Carville said it was the economy stupid. It's the network stupid, and the network is getting bigger. More Americans are, and they're not just left. I mean, these are people now who want the president to succeed and to want something to happen on the economy, health care, global warming. A lot of these issues there, I think we're going to find, are in the mainstream, not right or left.
Right. So Gavin, this is you guys are a difficult group to control as we will start to. We're going to wind our way through a variety of topics and not be able to stay linear. So that's fine.
Seconds.
Certainly, I've never had a linear conversation with Joe in my life. So, Gavin, I wanted to ask you in the context of both these things, right? So you're an elected official, and there are a couple different ways in which the internet, the web, and people acting via the web can affect you as an elected official, right? There's one way in which there's a changed media environment, and Arianna has sent out citizen journalists, people like Mayhill Fowler, who walk up and it's not the normal press package to some woman. She's got a recorder in her hand. She starts talking to you. Do you see that on a local level?
Oh,
number
yeah.
one. And number two, what about in terms of organized constituencies, the kind of thing that Joe's talking about? Are you starting, to what extent has the web impacted the way you govern because organized, mobilized constituencies can get at you across the web?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think we're very good as politicians with this whole topic yet. I mean, Joe was the trailblazer. Everyone was mesmerized. And with respect, I think most of us are mesmerized by how much money the Howard Dean campaign raised. And everyone said, boy, this is a great way to raise money. We didn't necessarily know yet about the social networking sites, reference to Facebook just coming on and the like. I just ran for re-election this time last year. God is my witness. I looked around one day at a campaign rally. I said, who are these people? I've been in politics 15 years, and I'm used to the usual suspects. And they said, oh, those are all your friends from Facebook. I said, what's Facebook? Trust me.
And these are not my friends.
But now I am proud to say I have more Facebook friends than any other politician outside the presidential candidates. I am obsessed with Facebook.
But not as many. I'll tell you, not as many as Arianna. She's actually maxed out. They won't let her have any more friends on Facebook.
And there's a way to work
She's
around
got 4.7 million friends or something.
But it's an extraordinary tool. And as I said, it creates that connection. That's much more meaningful. I mean, I want someone who's a fanatic, a fan. I want someone that feels part of something, not just inspired, but motivated to participate in a much richer and deeper way. But again, I just think this is still in its nascent form. And I talk to most politicians, they're not necessarily there yet. And it's not just a time of life, as Arianna said, it's a state of mind. I mean, it's not old or young that are not getting it, but they don't understand the capacity. And the fundraising side is, of course, immediate to a candidate. I mean, the ability to raise money, it's extraordinary, especially in these $5, $15 clips, which ultimately amount to an extraordinary amount of money, as we've seen in these campaigns. But here's the fear I have. You now have entered into a phase where every single thing you say, the way you say it, how you say it, is now all exposed. The YouTubeification of the world. So when you ask me about citizen bloggers and new media, I have to watch myself now sing I Left My Heart in San Francisco on YouTube, and it can't go away. I am desperate to get it to go away. And you've now had all these guys that just got elected, just, save the Allen example and the macaca moment. This is it. That's the end of a world as we know it. Right. And now all of a sudden, this is a whole new crop, and now beware, just beware. And I do think it's an extraordinary thing, and maybe perhaps we'll eventually feel that we can be more forgiving when we make mistakes. But I do think there'll be a lot of collateral damage in the context of us coming to grips with the fact that we're in a reality TV series now in politics 24/7.
I agree the danger period, but I disagree with what's happening is that this medium demands authenticity. And so from this day forward, and television demanded for the most part fake, right? I know. You can fool anybody for 30 seconds. So, George Allen for 30 seconds could run millions of dollars of ads for 30 seconds, seem like a decent guy, and win the Senate. Turns out The macaca stuff is who he really is, and he says it, and that comes out.
John Edwards did it for like a whole year.
Thanks, Guy. That's really thanks, man. Come on, man.
Sorry.
Don't be like that.
Sorry.
Anyways, my point, though, is that the medium demands authenticity, and that is something politicians haven't been used to. And in other words, instead of hiding and being worried about who you are, you've got to run being comfortable with who you are.
But Joe, doesn't that come at a big price? The Howard Dean moment.
Right now,
I had to watch $10 million of ads with my Howard Dean moment on Prop 8. I mean, authenticity, we all are for it, unless it's the kind of authenticity that we don't like.
No, what I think is going to, no, my point is, I think what's going to happen is two things. Like the next, every time you have one, the best one is Conrad Burns, who, the footage of him falling asleep, right? He's no longer the senator from Montana because he fell asleep, or one of the big reasons was he fell asleep in a Senate hearing, and the footage of him, slumping off got all over the place, and it started to, well, look, the fact of the matter is there are 100 U.S. senators. I doubt that if you could tell me one of them who's not fallen asleep in a boring hearing at 2 in the morning, let me know. So the point is, I think the second time somebody falls asleep, it's not going to do anything. Right. In other words, what I think is the period between the fake and the authentic, when we're used to seeing somebody, when he's authentic, saying macaca, and attack, people are going to step back and give people, the next Howard Dean scream's not going to have the same impact that it had in 2004 when people like John couldn't stop writing about it, or showing it. But okay, just you want to fight like this, we can do it.
Yeah. No, I want to. But I'll win, Joe. Yeah. Arianna, let me actually try to bring a question out of that whole thing, right? So to go to Mayhill Fowler, who is someone who is a citizen journalist who on 2 occasions had an amazing cycle this year. She both managed to get the single slip up of the entire Obama campaign when Obama in this fundraiser here referred to bitter, clinging, God-loving, gun-toting whatevers. And she also managed to get Bill Clinton on the rope line up in South Dakota when he lashed out at Todd Purdum from Vanity Fair and called him a scumbag and all that stuff. So do you have any moral, ethical, professional qualms about sending people out because I know that a lot of politicians, and I'm not standing up for them, I'm just saying this is what they would say. They would say something like, someone approaches me on a rope line and I'm having a conversation with them and they don't declare themselves to be a journalist. They don't put a reporter in my face. They keep the recorder under a book and they have a conversation with me. I don't think necessarily this person is a reporter. I deserve to be told that you're a reporter. And I think many reporters, in fact, I would never walk up to a politician and just start a conversation without saying, I'm John Heilemann from New York Magazine. So do you have any qualms about having let that genie out of the bottle?
Absolutely not. First of all, let me just make something very clear. I do not send anybody out. That's very sort of old-fashioned way of describing what's happening. Citizen journalists send themselves out and report back. And we now have 12,000 citizen journalists who are part of this project that we launched that we called Off the Bus. And we called it Off the Bus to differentiate it from the reporters who are on the bus. And as you know, John, very often a conventional wisdom congeals very quickly on the bus or on the plane or in the bar. And you have the same kind of reporting from multiple sources with kind of better writing or less good writing. Now, Mayhill Fowler, who was a writer, as you know, here in the Bay Area, and for 15 years she was writing and was getting nothing published. So she was clearly an obsessive person who started following Obama around, and she was transparently an Obama supporter. Now, when she recorded him at a fundraiser, the Obama campaign never complained, to their credit, because they understood the new rules. And what Bill Burton said to me is, Arianna, he said, that's it. We have to acknowledge there is no off-the-record fundraiser. How could we ever think there was an off-the-record fundraiser? How many people here are recording what we're saying, or taking pictures, or doing in some form, creating a document out of what's happening now or out of what's happening in a fundraiser? So the thing for us, why that was a defining moment for the Huffington Post, was the distinction between a partisan source of journalism, and a fair source of journalism with a transparent point of view. Like if we had suppressed that, we would have been Fox. You know, we would have been basically not independent, not fair. So that was the moment of truth for us. And now, in the second occasion, you know, when Mayhill Fowler pointed a tape recorder clearly at Bill Clinton, it was not hidden under a book or in her purse, it was there.
Accounts differ on this subject.
No.
I think the former president would disagree with you.
It was a public event. It was a rope line. She was holding his hand. What did he think? He was talking to in a private moment, describing Todd Purdom as a scumbag? You know, honestly. I think that definitely Mayhill should have identified herself. And that's something which you have said, and she has acknowledged. That was a mistake, and it has been corrected going forward. Right. But at the same time, the president could not have had any illusion that he was in a private setting, talking in private to somebody he had never met before, with hundreds of people present and a tape recorder. So the politicians definitely need to adjust how they behave.
So Gavin, there's no off the record ever again.
And that's the question
under
of
any circumstance.
authenticity. Are we now more authentic or less authentic when we always have to be on?
Yeah.
And look,
well, here's what I would say. And
get over it is my point. No. You're on the record. I don't care if you're talking to your best friend, because someone down the block may be sitting there with that new YouTube phone that just came out, and now you're being recorded. So I think if you get into public life, you should expect nothing short of this.
No, but I think that the whole point here is I don't believe there's anybody who can fake it for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So you're not going to be on. I mean, you're going to be who you are, foibles and all, and we're going to see it all, and that I think is healthy, because you guys aren't saints. You don't. I mean, it's not. Of course we're all human beings. I mean, that's what I'm saying, and you're going to see that, and it's just the way it's going to be.
So let me go in a different direction. Just we're past the halfway point. I want to ask this question to go back kind of to the top, and this is wound through a couple of your comments. So the Obama campaign. I think there are two different obvious things that the web was used for in that campaign. One of which was to raise money, another of which was to organize and mobilize constituencies. To me, one of the most staggering statistics of the election was that in the month of February, Barack Obama raised, I believe, $70 million, which was the most that any Democratic candidate had ever raised in a month of a primary, and held exactly 0 fundraisers in that month. And as you know, Joe, freeing up your candidate to never have to raise money, to never have to make those phone calls, to be able to have it be an automatic process is not.
Gaff more in public.
Right. Is a pretty huge deal. So I mentioned that just to say that we shouldn't diminish the importance of the money raising aspect of the web. But let me go down the line and say, where is the web? Talk about both of those two things: money raising, social mobilization. Which is more important? You know, which is the place where we're going to see the most standardization in the future? Where are we going to see the most innovation in the future?
Well, I mean, look, there's 3 things. I'd say obviously the money. I think the future it's the best prospect we have for real public financing. I don't think you can write a law. I mean, I think plenty of people, including McCain, honestly tried to do that. You can't do it. I think the ability to say, I'm not going to take checks over $250 and that's how we're going to do this from now on. I'm not, Obama took no PAC money, no lobbyist money. The DNC didn't. So I think you could see real reform happen almost on a volunteer. If Obama right now said the whole party from this point on is not taking that money, and I asked the Republican Party to join us or expose who the hell they're really working for, right, you could have reform happen. And the only reason it can happen is because of the internet and these technologies. So I think that's the big one. 2, look, I think the big difference that got him to where he is was the organization. We just didn't have the ability in 2003, 2000, just simple things. Google Maps wasn't there. I mean, just a lot of this isn't the campaigns. It's Web 2.0. It's what's happened, how the tools changed between 2003, 2004, 2008. So what happens is they have a bigger network, and unlike us, we had maybe a zip code finder where you could put your zip code in and kind of find out what was happening around you. We just didn't have the time, money, or tools to get you to actually decentralize in a precinct get with other people, and then connect to the paid organizers that really knew what they were doing and make a difference. The fact of the matter is, Barack Obama won every single caucus state that mattered, Iowa included, and he did it because of those tools, because he was able to move thousands and thousands of people to organize in those caucus states and run up huge victories over Clinton. I mean, 75, 25, 67, 33, and she didn't have the money to pay paid organizers, which is what she would have had to do in all those caucus states, and she didn't use the tools or have the army to do it voluntarily like Obama did. And that's, when you go back and look at the primary season, look at why he had that lead going into the convention, the one before all the insiders finally broke and said, okay, he's going to be it, so let's go. That entire lead came out of those caucus states, which came out of his ability to use the tools, and not his ability, his folks, volunteers who never really probably had any connection with the national campaign, used those tools to organize locally. You saw the same thing in the general election with how he was pushing into states like North Carolina and Indiana using those same tools, so that's two. That's going to be a big thing. And on both those fronts, the Republicans are in deep trouble. They've shown no ability to use those tools or to work them. But the third one, and I think this is underseen, is the power of Will.i.am and other user-generated video that had nothing to do with it. We talked about the 47 million they produced officially. But for that to get sent to somebody who was an undecided friend of mine, who then looked at it and said, wow, I'm going to go check this guy out on the web, and went to his website. So you had three things that were going on. It wasn't just the money in the organization. It really was the viral ability of people, of citizens, to go to their friends, the peer-to-peer move to get people involved, and not just get them to vote for a guy, but actually get them to go with you on a Saturday to walk in their precinct. This is civic engagement on a level that we've never seen before. I think that civic engagement is another major piece of this.
Postcards.
We'll do Arianna, come to you, and then we'll go to Gavin. Let's just go in that loop.
Just very quickly, because the civic engagement is also facilitated by the nature of the web. Yeah. We had a panel in Denver, and Will.i.am was actually on the panel, and he made a very interesting distinction. He said the way you consume news and information is so different. In the television era, you consume it by sitting on your couch and kind of looking.
I like that era.
Right? You like that era? Well,
I like my couch.
He prefers the other era. He said on the internet era, you are consuming it by galloping on your horse. You're kind of absorbing it. You're engaged. You're not just watching a Will.i.am video by looking there eating popcorn. You're engaged. So this kind of, the nature of consuming the new media encourages civic engagement. And it's not just sound bites. For me, one of the most fascinating things was the number of people who actually watched Barack Obama's speech on race from beginning to end. It was 37 minutes. Over 6 million people watched it. That made a huge difference when they tried to present him as some kind of radical black man like Reverend Wright. It was just a huge constituency to have actually heard that very important speech in its entirety.
Let me, at peril, agree with everything said, and I don't think I can add anything more, except that there is a whole group of people that have no clue what we're talking about. And those are the hundreds, literally hundreds of thousands of people just a few blocks away and a few miles away from where we're sitting. And those are folks that don't have internet, can't afford access broadband, don't know what we're even discussing. The folks that need to be more empowered and more engaged and need to be part of this new media development. That we have a huge digital divide problem, which makes a lot of this very meaningful but utterly meaningless to those that, from my perspective, need this type of engagement and influence the most. And I just think it's incumbent upon us to reconcile that in the context of new media, because the only media these folks are getting is that TV set, and to the extent they can afford the cable box. And I am fearful of that because we are slipping. We're not making any real advancements. And I've been very involved in this. As you may recall, we were one of the first Wi-Fi city in the United States. We had a deal with Google. It fell through. Now we're working with a network, and Networks Fund and Meraki and others to try to reconcile this. But I do think this needs to be a big part of the equation, especially for folks in power if they want to empower folks in this new medium.
One, completely agree with that, and applaud Champion trying to get that done here in the city, because I know how hard you've worked on it. But I do want to just do one caveat to that, as sort of something that how this still makes a huge difference. And I remember in Austin, Texas, the Dean campaign, we had 431 people on our email list. And we emailed all 431 of them and said he's going to come to the park. We're going to have a little barbecue. Come meet the governor. And we thought if we had half of those people come, it'd be great. Mm-hmm. We got to the park. There were 3,200 people there. And the reason the 3,200 people there was one of the original 431 emailed everybody and said, if he's coming, let's get together and see what we can do about getting other people to come. 100 people showed up in that guy's backyard for the, how are we going to get people? They decided they were going to walk the entire Latino area of Austin, Texas, and tell people that he was coming. And they came up with other organizational things, and 3,200 people came. And so I think, and you saw this really happen in the Obama campaign, they really perfected the ability to use online to take people and connect with folks that didn't have online connectivity or didn't have access to the web, and motivate those people to get engaged too. Doesn't mean they need to be connected, but it's really fascinating how this is actually breaching that divide, one-on-one, face-to-face, people communicating and pulling people in who don't have access. And the other thing I think that's as Web 2.0 and cell phones merge, and you see the power of what you can, the information flow and the sites and things that you can get on the web. Almost everybody, I just did some stuff in Nigeria where there's 1.6 million landlines and 66 million cell phones. And we were text messaging that you hold the torch of democracy in your hand. Use it to pass the torch to other Nigerians, let them know. It was amazing how engaged people got using the technology there, where even in the poorest village, there's one cell phone and they share it. So as we get, I think everything's catching up. I think we need to get the Wi-Fi, we have to close that divide, but I think things are happening that are going to help make that happen.
So, I want to talk a little bit about somehow the intersection of politics and policy. I had a Republican say to me the other day, Stuart Stevens, a Republican consultant, who said to me, I think that the depth and the scale of the Obama realignment is being underestimated. He is now more powerful with that email list. He's more powerful than the Democratic Party. He's more powerful than the Republican Party. He's effectively been elected as an independent with Democratic backing. He's like Bernie Sanders on steroids, And the implications of that were interesting, right? I mean, first of all, to go to your point, Arianna, about earlier about no left, no right, are we seeing, not just in this guy, but not just in the Obama instance, but in what he represents for the future, is this like the final last blow to the whole two-party system? Because he seems to be existing in a way. I mean, I've had to go through the process by which to get this nomination, but his success or failure doesn't seem to rest very much on the party and its apparatus any longer. And in what ways, can you imagine the ways in which with the network that he now has, when he starts to put forward his agenda, I can easily see Obama using both raising money, targeting districts of Republicans and Democrats with advertising. I mean, he can use this medium to the web to try to drive in an independent way out there in the country to drive his agenda in a way that no one ever has before. So what does all that mean for governance and for the future of the whole two-party system? That's a big question, but I'd like to hear all three of you on it.
Well, I think it is the most important thing going on, and I think we cannot talk about it enough, because we're just like beginning to explore a new way of looking at politics, and we are all so completely used to talking about right versus left. I mean, look at the McCain campaign trying to present Obama as this extreme left-wing candidate, right? And it didn't work at all because it just is not what is happening and it's not where people are coming from. But those of us in the media and those of you in politics need to help define what is happening. Because I know on my own team, when we have our calls with reporters, our reporters, we have this rule, nobody can use right versus left. It's a lazy way to talk. And it's still hard. You know, people joke about it. Oh my God, I said left. It's like we're becoming like criminologists. You know, these are the forbidden words.
Criminologist or Kremlinologist?
Criminologists.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of forbidden words. And if we kind of try to force ourselves not to think of American politics in that context, we'll be much closer to where the Obama administration can go. Now, will it go there? We don't know, but it's certainly, the setting is all there for them. And that's not post-partisan in the sense of Clintonian triangulation. You see, that's the complete opposite. Taking right versus left and splitting the difference and triangulating is really how to do nothing important, except, you know, pass legislation on school uniforms and itsy-bitsy initiatives where you can get consensus because it doesn't really matter. If you want to do really transformational politics, you have to transcend these divisions and really define the new center. And I can't think of anything more important, and of no one else really has had the opportunity to do it. And the fact that he's chosen Rahm Emanuel as his chief of staff is actually an extremely good thing, because Rahm is an enforcer. You know, you actually have to be tough to break through the conventional way of doing politics, and he has it in him to do that.
Gavin.
The most important thing is it's a means politics to an end. So, you know, if you don't want to be a part of the Democratic Party or Republican Party, you better be part of the get it done party. And the peril of all this is you've got to deliver. The best politics is a better idea, but you've got to actually make real those ideas. So the transformative power of this intersection between new media and this campaign in the context of governance is the ability to mobilize people to transcend those party systems, absolutely, and engage people one-on-one, neighbor to neighbor, in terms of empowering folks to be participatory and pushing folks along. But we better come up with the ideas that are practical to stand behind and to push. And my greatest fear is that is a sort of meaningless construct if we're not actually pushing forward an agenda that is actually reasonable and can attribute some fundamental change. Joe, you look...
Joe, you have 12 seconds.
I know, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I know.
8 now. I'll just do one really quick thing.
5.
Assuming
2.
he has 10...
Thank you very much, Joe Trippi, for coming here today. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
we'll give you a free ride here.
Assuming there are 10 million people in his network, I mean, there's 3.2 million gave to him, and in the Dean campaign, it was about a third of the people who had signed up with us actually contributed as well. So, 10 million people. There are about 180 million adults in the U.S. So there's right now walking around is when you go down the street, 1 out of 18 people is actually a signed-up member of the Obama effort. Those people have parents, friends, co-workers, et cetera, which is one of the reasons none of the negative stuff. It's another thing that Arianna is that now they have the ability to read the truth, they can pass that on. But I think that's amazing power to move an agenda forward because of the same thing, the people talking to their friends. I agree with Gavin on the get it done part, but there's a second thing that you have to be careful about, and Democrats particularly. 47% of the country did not vote for this guy. It's not, it's not 100%. So taking them, leading them, trying to get them to understand this is the way we're going to go is going to be a major piece of this. It can't be the left just running for everything on their list that they wanted to get done. He's got to sit in the middle and make sure that's his. It's going to be very interesting to see how he plays that. I don't know how he's going
Arianna's going to banish you for using that word left.
I can't believe it. I mean, what have I been saying? And there's Joe.
Well, no, Joe, how dare you not agree with Arianna? Dear God. All right, so listen, we're out of time.
I'll talk to you later, Joe.
We're going to take a couple questions. I think we have time for that, unless somebody tells me we don't. So let's bring the lights up a little bit and see if there's anybody who has questions for this august group.
What's that mean? Okay.
There's a question.
Here's a question. Sorry, I'm going to try to stop twittering long enough to ask a question.
Can you tell us who you are?
My name is Moya. I just got through working on the No on Prop 8 campaign, working hard. So I agree with a lot of, especially what you're saying, Mayor Newsom. And I wanted to give some examples. But, you know, I agree it's a sea change in Web 2.0 and politics, and that the truth is coming into people's living rooms, as you say, Arianna. But we also saw some frightening examples of lies and hatred. And that included denial of service attacks that brought our site down, personal attacks, of course, and threats like you always see. Videos propagated on YouTube. I mean, you were Howard Dean, but we were Hitler.
Howard was too. They did that one.
Gay people getting served on their blogs, anti-gay ads because the Yes side invested so heavily in Google AdWords. So I guess my note of caution is that it seems like people with more money and power are still going to find ways in the end to get their message across more than those without. But anyway, thank you for being much more than Howard Dean to us.
No, sweet. No, well, it's frustrating. I mean, obviously, we became the first state in U.S. history, and this is important, regardless of what you believe about it, same-sex marriage. We're the first state in American history to use the Constitution to take people's rights away. A Constitution that in its history since the Bill of Rights has been amended 17 times, each and every time to expand people's rights. California led the way to strip those rights. And it is true that money, regardless of new media strategies, and we employed a lot of these new media strategies, a lot of these networking strategies on MySpace and Twitter.com and all these places, and we use the text messaging and all the one-on-one. It doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to win, I guess is the point. So the forces are still out there where big checks can always trump. But I don't know. I guess the ultimate optimism is that eventually, I think we haven't seen anything yet. And just on this goes to your point. Yeah. This is nascent. I mean, who would have thought 4 years later, 8 years later, we'd be as far along as we are? I could imagine 10, 15 years from now. And you've got this whole millennial generation, folks born between 78 and 2000. This is intuitive. This is part of their DNA. They're not identified, as Arianna said, left or right, but they're more empathetic. They're more connected, literally and figuratively. And as a consequence, I think it gives us tremendous optimism. And I think Barack really represents this new approach, this new governance, this new style. And I think it's an extraordinary, extraordinary time in that respect.
Okay, I'm told we have time for one more. I apologize for that, but go right ahead and tell us who you are.
Hi, my name's Russell, actually from Australia.
Hi, Russell from Australia.
Hi, how are you doing? That's not my last name, by the way. There you go. No, I was just agreeing with the left and right concept. I mean, we had a recent election in Australia, and it really wasn't about left or right politics anymore. It was really about the centre. And out of that was, who you're going to trust and who you believe in. And I think the web is a great vehicle for that. In actual fact, the new Prime Minister earned the reputation of 24/7 was his new nickname, because he really did open that up. And so a very similar thing here. I mean, obviously on a much larger scale. So yeah, I agree with you entirely. And the second thing is that, in Australia we get news filtered through a number of sources. But every morning in our coffee break, we sit down and look at the Huffington Post. So thank you for keeping it real, and also the entertainment was really good. And lastly, it was great to be here on Tuesday night and to see the outcome of the election and to feel the vibe in this city. And I think, from my point of view, it's not just about how great it is for you guys, but how great it is for the world, and particularly for us in Australia being so close to you guys. So thank you very much.
That was like a keynote.
Yes.
Yeah. Since that wasn't really a question, we're going to take one more question.
Well,
we love Australia and everything, but please.
I'm Ana Maria Llopis from Madrid, Spain. I have a site for ideas, sharing ideas, ideasforall.com. My question is the following. After Obama has been able to raise so much money, I have the feeling that we could see a new phenomenon in politics as well, about raising budgets outside the budget of administration. Like, let's take, for instance, MySpace and the fact that music or new music is being sponsored by the users, and they don't need the intermediate music industry. Of course, for some of it, yes, but not for all. So do you see that could start happening, that we could see citizens wanting to give money to some bills, even passing outside of the administration of the Congress?
Okay, we have to have quick answers to this. Gavin, are you going to put a tip jar on the city website?
Well, we sure as heck better, because things are going to get worse before they get better in the context of governance. I mean, people now more than ever are going to need to be empowered and engaged. Look, I have been dreaming of this inaugural Barack Obama's inaugural, which to me will, I am confident, take us to a whole nother level in terms of citizen engagement and about what we're capable of doing as a people. And that's what we need to hear. That's the generation of inspiration will transcend his 4 or 8 years as president, because we don't have a choice. Government can't solve all of these problems exclusively, certainly in the immediate term. So yes.
But I do think the question, though, was extra budgetary fundraising over the web. Yes.
Yes.
You're good for that. Joe, yes or no? Can we raise money off budget, use the web to... No?
I don't think so.
Why?
I think, no, I think offline projects, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think charities and other groups, I mean, the American Cancer Society, things like that.
But not as supplemental funds for the federal or state or local
the problem
governments.
is we're so deep in the barrel that even if 300 million people gave you $10, that's $1 billion, and we may need it, but
on a local level, we do this.
Right.
I mean, trust me, there are city programs that are funded, and the cuts are offset by people coming together.
All right. The hook is coming out. So
locally,
you have
I thought she was actually federal. Locally, I think that's going to happen.
Okay.
I think charities.
But also,
Arianna, quick.
just 10 seconds. You know, there are going to be so many more problems. You know, so much more suffering with the job losses and homelessness and foreclosures, that there will be so many opportunities to actually raise money for specific projects in our own districts, that's the way to go. And I feel completely at home with people from Spain, from Australia. My Greek accent seems completely normal.
Well, not completely, Arianna, but close enough for panel work. Thank you guys very much for a great panel.
Thank you.